Hi friends, welcoming you to the new course of entomology. In this course we are going to study about all the fundamentals of entomology. Entomology, by the name we know that it is about the insect. We are going to study about the insects. Entomology, it comes from the two different Greek words. Entomon means insects and logy means the study. So it is mostly about studying the insects. Entomology in common has two divisions. First one is about the fundamentals, where we are not going to care about whether the insects are useful or not. You are going to study about all the aspects of entomology or the insects. And the second part or second division is our applied entomology, where we are going to look into whether the insect is going to be helpful to human being or it is going to be harmful to human beings. Applied aspects, like if you take insects that are harmful to human beings, like mosquitoes or the houseflies or any other insect species that is going to transmit diseases to the animals of human domestication. These are all the harmful effects. If you take in another way, that is beneficial insects, like we are having honeybees and silkworms to produce the silk, and the lac insect to produce the lac, and other ornamental purposes we are using butterflies. These things are our applied aspects. It is about the beneficial of the insects. So this is the two major divisions. Coming to the point that in our course we are going to study about all the fundamentals of insects, like how it functions, what is the history of entomology in the world and in India, and the physiology and the morphological structures which is helpful to the insects, and how the insects are classified based on what it is classified, and more or less it's about the fundamentals. So the common question arises, why to study about insect? The various departments in the world, they study about insect for various purposes, because insects are here before humans. They are here around 350 to 400 million years ago. It is here in Earth. But as a human, we are all here for around 1 or 2 million years ago. So it is very important to know about the insects, because they adapted all the conditions in the earth starting from the scratch. They are here right before us. So it is lot to learn about insects for our various purposes. In agricultural point of view, we are having insect that is harmful to us, like pest. If you take any crop, it is affected by a lot of pests. It is having dozens of pests it is affected by. And also if you take insects in the animal kingdom, it is around 70% of the all organisms or all animals in the world are insects. So they are dominant species. The earth, we can call it is a planet of insects. We are calling it as a planet of human, but in the number they outnumber us for 1 per trillion. And there are a lot of places where humans cannot habitate, but insects are there everywhere. Every corners of the world, insects are there. Before studying anything or before getting into know something, the history is very important, because when we are talking about the light, we are simply not going to talk about how the light is made, what is the product that made light. We are going to study about the history, how the light is made, what is the purpose the light is made in first place. So let's start with the history of entomology. History of entomology in world, if you see all the cultures in the world, they are having some clues about the insects in their culture. Like for example, like in case of the Egyptian pyramids, they are having drawings that is mentioning the human collecting the honeys. The drawings were there like this. Here we can see that the human is collecting the honey, which is our beneficial insects. And there are a lot of naturalists and the physicists and most of the medical professionals, they are all involved, and they have shown a lot of interest in collecting the insect and showing them and studying them, which made the whole subject entomology in world. When we see about the history of entomology in India, our ancient people, our ancient Indians are well aware of the insect species. So they have mentioned a lot of the clues about insects in our ancient books, like in Mahabharata and Ramayana. There are a lot of records about the insect species. Like they have mentioned about insects, they have mentioned it as a padanga, and in case of ants, they have mentioned it as a pipilika, and in case of bees, they named it as a madhumikshika. There are a lot of records about these insects, as they know the importance of insect in the ancient times itself. In India, the first one to give the broader classification about the insect is Umashwadi, who gave the detailed classification of insect, which is not available to us, but he is the first one to give the classification about the insects. And Indian physician Charaka, he gave the classification of various bees that is in India, and the classification of ants and flies. These are all given by the medical professional, that is our Shushruta, who is known as the surgeon in the ants in India, given the classification of ants and flies. This is about some of the ideas about the knowledge of insects in the ants in India. If you see that in the modern era, we can divide the history into the ancient one and modern one, right? So like in the ancient era, Indians had the knowledge about the insects. If you check the modern era, it started from after 1758, where the well-known systematist, that is our Carolus Linnaeus, he came up with the Systema Naturae book, where he classified almost all the plants and animals he came across during his journey. He named everyone in the binomial classification, which means calling the organism by two names, which is the generic name and the species name. So in his book, the Systema Naturae, he have classified 12 species of insects in his 10th edition of the Systema Naturae. So this is the first time the Indian entomology is going global. And if you see the entomologist, or the first entomologist to study extensively about the Indian insect is Fabricius. He is the first one to study, travel around India to collect the insect and naming it. And he collected the specimens all around India and he sent it to Carolus Linnaeus. He named it insect by himself. He is a Danish professor of political studies, but he turned himself into entomology as he had a lot of interest on the insects. And he classified insects into 13 orders based on the mouth part. So when we talk about the insect morphology, we will come across all the different structures like mouth parts. Then we will understand why he classified insect using the mouth parts. Another important scientist in Indian entomology is J.G. Koenig. He collected the insects mostly from the southern India, and he contributed himself a lot in the study of the termites of Thanjavur District in Tamil Nadu. So then in the memory of himself, the most destructive pest of cotton, that is red cotton bug, is named after the Koenig by the Fabricius himself. It is named as Dysdercus Koenig. Important turning point in Indian entomology happened right after Asiatic Society of Bengal, which is started in Calcutta by the 1785, after which the collection of insect and showcasing got more attention as they gave importance to the collecting of insects. And the next important milestone in the Indian entomology is the formation of the Insect Museum, 1875 at Calcutta. Then after the formation of Indian Museum in Calcutta, the Asiatic Society of Bengal and the Indian Museum of Calcutta, they are all merged and they were working together in showcasing the insects from various parts of the country and studying about them. And the next one is in 1883, our Bombay Natural History Society started. After the formation of the Bombay Natural History Society, the scientific study of entomology is stimulated, or it started after the Bombay Natural History Society. They came up with the Journal of Bombay Natural History. Then after the formation of this, they came up with the Fauna of British India. So the Fauna of British India, which is having major impact in the Indian entomology, as it was giving more scientific knowledge about the Indian insects, and which was edited by the Blandford. When we see about the first entomologist in India, the first entomologist of the government of India is Lionel de Niceville. He is the first entomologist appointed as specifically as an entomologist under government of India. After him, in 1903, Professor Maxwell Lefroy, he succeeded him. Then he was appointed as an imperial entomologist in the Imperial Agricultural Institute. He is appointed as imperial entomologist by 1905. Our Indian Agricultural Research Institute was actually located in Bihar, in Pusa. After the earthquake, it is shifted to now New Delhi. Before he was working as an entomologist in Surat. Lefroy's most important works came with the two books. By 1906, he came up with the books of Indian Insect Pest, and by 1909, he came up with the Indian Insect Life. Both these books are so much important in Indian entomology. So he gave a lot of description about all the insects of India. So after this, the state governments also came up with the entomologists. They have decided to have their own entomologists for their state. If we see, the first state entomologist is Fletcher, who is the first entomologist of the Madras state. Followed by that, other states like Punjab and Uttar Pradesh, they are also appointed their own entomologists for their own states. T.B. Fletcher is the first entomologist for the Madras state. In 1914, he came up with one of the most important book he released was the Some South Indian Insects, which is have description about description and status of insects, about the insects especially in the South Indian condition. And by 1916, our Indian Museum is turned into the Zoological Survey of India. So they started with the more scientific knowledge, and they started with sharing lot of scientific knowledge about the insects. Still now they are the nodal institute for mostly identification of insects, and most of the zoological knowledge sharing happens from the Zoological Survey of India throughout India. So this is about the brief history of entomology in India. Let me show you some of the milestone events in the history so that we can get the whole idea about the entomology's history in India. So it's all started after the recognition of Indian insects after 1758, when the Carolus Linnaeus, he came up with the Systema Naturae. In his 10th edition, he have mentioned 12 species of Indian insects. Then followed by that, Fabricius, he had his own role in the collection of Indian insect. He is one of the finest entomologists. Then followed by him, the Koenig. So from 1767 to 1779, Dr. Koenig, he collected the insect from Coromandel area and Southern Peninsular of India, and he published a special account of termites of Thanjavur District. And in the memory of him, the most destructive pest, that is red cotton bug, is named after Koenig by the Fabricius as the Dysdercus Koenig. Then by 1782, Dr. Kerr, he published an account of lac insect. Lac insect are the natural resin producing the insects. When we see the resins, there are two kinds, one the natural one and another one is the artificial one. In the natural resin, there are animal origin resin and the plant origin resin. In case of the animal origin, there are very few animal origin resins are there. Among that, our lac insect is coming. We will see about all the about the applied aspects of entomology in the next course. So after that, the 1785, our most important Asiatic Society of Bengal is started in Calcutta. Then followed by that, 1791, Dr. J. Anderson, he issued a monograph on Cochineal scale insects. Monograph means individual insect is focused, and he written all the details of the Cochineal insects in India. By 1800, the traveler Buchanan, he wrote about the lac insects of India and also the cultivation of sericulture in parts of India. By 1875, the foundation of the Indian Museum at Calcutta happened. Then followed by that, 1883, the Bombay Natural History Society was started. Then after that, the more scientific history of entomology began. Then the 1883, the government came up with the Fauna of British India series, which is edited by Blandford. Then by 1893, Rodney, he came up with the Indian ants, which is the earliest record of biological control in India. The biological control means the control of any insect by insect, or it may be by controlling insect using any of the living organism that is going to prey them, it is going to kill them. Ultimately, we are going to get the result of the control of the pest. So it is the earliest record of biological control in India, where he mentioned about the white ants, which means our termites. The control of termites happened using the red ants, especially in the bookstores. The problem of the termites was taken care by using the red ants. By 1901, our first entomologist was of Government of India, Dr. Leonard Nesvally came, then was followed by Maxwell Lefroy. He succeeded the Dr. Leonard Nesvally. Professor Lefroy, he came up with the two books. By 1906 he have written Indian Insect Pest. By 1909 he came up with Indian Insect Life. Then subsequently after that the state governments also started to look after the entomological work in their state. First, which was the Madras state, they came up with their own entomologist by 1912, who was our T.B. Fletcher, who was the first government entomologist of Madras state. Then by 1912 the government came up with the Plan Quarantine Act. Plan Quarantine means, now we are so familiar with the quarantine, which means the isolating the people in the corona pandemic, isolating the people for a certain period of time. The same thing with the plants. When we are shifting over the plant from one area to another, we have to make sure that the plant doesn't contain any pests or diseases. So the foundation of plant quarantine started after 1912, followed by the Plant Quarantine Act in order to protect our country from the destructive pests from outside the country, and also the protect the states, individual states from spreading. If one pest is introduced, then it has to be stopped in particular state or area. For that, government came up with the Destructive Insect Pest Act, which was by 1914. Then T.B. Fletcher, he came up with the book Some South Indian Insects by 1914, which covered some of the most important topics of South Indian insects in details. By 1916, the Indian Museum was formed into the Zoological Survey of India. By 1916 it happened. Then after that, by 1925, as we have talked about the lac insect, the lac for the purpose of research on this particular lac insect for the animal origin resin, by 1925 Indian Lac Research Institute was formed. If you are so much interested to know about the lac insect, I have already made the video on the lac insect. It is in the description. If you want to know more about the lac insect, you can go and check that too. By 1934, Hemsingh Pruthi, he succeeded Fletcher in the Madras state as a state entomologist. Then the Entomological Society of India as the official society for the entomological research and the knowledge sharing. The community of entomologists came together. They formed the Entomological Society of India by 1938. Then the first president of the Entomological Society of India was the Afzal Hussain. Then 1939 the Locust Warning Organization was established. Then we already know about the locust pandemic. Before the corona pandemic, the locust pandemic came. The locusts were migratory pests which will be moving from one area to the another area. They mostly breed in the areas of the desert. So now when the locust pandemic happened, our locust warning organization together with the other institution, they came up with the control measures, and they successfully stopped the locust from entering into the South Indian conditions. But before the formation of locust warning organization, it was not that easy. So the locust warning organization was formed by 1939, followed by the locust pandemic at that time. To look after the locust movement, where they are, their location, they are going to warn about the locust movement from one place to another, and taking measures about the control of the locust and once they entered inside the country. Though there is a Plan Quarantine Act which was passed by 1912, there was the particular institute or any governing nodal governing station was not produced yet. So by 1946 the Directorate of Plant Quarantine and Storage of Government of India was started, which is the nodal institute which is taking care of the destructive pest, which is going to be which may be from the other country or inside the movement of the plant quarantine pest inside the country too. One of the well-known Indian entomologists is the Dr. Ramakrishna Iyer. He wrote his famous book on the Handbook of Economic Entomology for South India by 1940. Our Indian entomologists, they documented their work with their different books for serving the Indian entomology's development. By 1963, H.S. Pruthi came up with the textbook of agricultural entomology. By 1968, Dr. M.S. Mani, he came up with the general entomology book. Then by 1969, Dr. Pradhan, he came up with the book Insect Pests of Crops. Ian Anandakrishnan, he came up with the monograph of, he have written the monograph on Tysonoptera. By 1975, a book on elements of economic entomology, which is in short called as the Triple E, which was written by the B. Vasantaraj David and T. Kumaraswamy. This is like one of the most important books in Indian entomology. And 1976, a book was written by General and Applied Entomology by K. K. Nair and T. V. Ramakrishna Iyer and B. Vasantaraj David. These are all the fine works of the Indian entomologists which is documented. And 1983, a book Agricultural Entomology and Pest Control, which was written by Dr. S. Pradhan. And by 1993, the establishment of National Center for Integrated Pest Management at New Delhi was formed. For controlling the pest, we are mostly using the for pesticides, or in particularly about for the insect, we are using the insecticide. But there was no regulating authority at that time, as the pesticides are not the consumer product. It is a poisonous chemical. So in order to regulate the use of the insecticides, the government came up with the Insecticide Act. By 1968, they came up with the Central Insecticide Act, which came into force in January 1971. Now the current Insecticide Act 1968 is going to be replaced by the Pest Management Bill 2020. So this is under review, and then I have also made the video about the Pest Management Bill 2020. If you wish to know about some of the concerns and some of the positive ways about the Pest Management Bill 2020, that and also its link, you can go and watch it. So this is about the entomology's history in India. Now let us move on to the question part. Question number 1. How many Indian insect species were found in the 10th edition of Systema Naturae? Question number 2 is, first entomologist who studied extensively on the Indian insects is. Question number 3 is, when did the Asiatic Society of Bengal was started? First official entomologist to the government of India is. Question number 5 is, the famous book Indian Insect Pests was written by the first imperial entomologist. Who is he? Question number 6, which was the first state to appoint its own entomologist? Question number 7 is, Central Insecticide Act was enforced from which year? Question number 8 is, Entomological Society of India was started on 1938. First president of Entomological Society of India was. Comment your right answers below. That's all about the today's class, guys. See you in the next class. Until then, bye bye. It's clear to see from up here, the world seems small.